Hey there, it's me. You know, that guy. The guy who collects video games and then talks about it on YouTube to a rousing audience of very few people, but does it mostly for himself because cataloging things is something that brings him joy amid all the anxiety. With that being said, I guess that means I've collected some video games. Actually, not very many this month, to be honest, because, MagFest was January, and that cut a lot of my expenses down. So in February, I didn't get too much. My birthday was in February, and I was expecting to get a lot more cash to be able to pick up some games. And I did get a lot more cash to pick up some games, but I ended up using it on other stuff, and I helped out some people in my life that needed help instead of picking up a lot of games. But I will say one thing. I definitely peppered out my N64 collection this month. I got 5 N64 games, but we'll talk about those last because I guess I'm most proud of those. Only 7 games and 1 accessory. So let's get right on it. So around right before my birthday, I was hanging out with my friend Joe, and I had some extra money on hand that I didn't really have to spend on anything else. It was pretty much disposable. So we went to Target, and I was just going to pick up a Nintendo Switch Pro Controller, which I did. But while we were there, I also spotted that they had discounted their copies of Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and I still didn't have a copy of either. So I finally got Pokemon Ultra Sun. So I got both of these together at Target with Joe, and I'm pretty happy I did. I didn't need a Pro Controller, but I wanted to get one just because I didn't have one, and I didn't have any other controllers other than just the 2 Joy-Cons that came with my Switch. So I figured might as well pick up another controller, and let's make it different. I didn't want to pick up another couple Joy-Cons because, well, that's not interesting, even though they come in a billion different colors. I did want to get one of the Pro Controllers that had the colored grips, but unfortunately Target was out, and I didn't really feel like driving to another Target or whatever. As a collector, I'll probably get them eventually anyway, so figured I would just pick up the standard with the black grips. And as for Pokemon Ultra Sun, again, I didn't have it. Don't know why, I just didn't pick it up when it came out. It went under my radar because I was busy with other things. But I finally got Ultra Sun because I had Sun when the first 2 games came out, and my girlfriend at the time got Moon, so I just followed suit and got Ultra Sun. I'll get Moon and Ultra Moon eventually, but for now, just continuing my already made decision of having one Sun. So yeah, trips to Target are pretty common for me when new stuff comes out, but old stuff that, well, older stuff, I shouldn't say old stuff, but older stuff that came out in months or years past, you can still find at Target, especially, 3DS games, because the Switch is starting to reign supreme in the handheld market for Nintendo. They're starting to discount a lot of their Nintendo 3DS merchandise, so might as well go pick some up. But yeah, Target, who would have thought? It's better than GameStop, that's for sure. So, we've mentioned before, I'm a member of Long Island Retro Gaming on Facebook, and wouldn't you know it, that lets me buy things from other people who want to get rid of some things. Most commonly, people having fire sales, which we've talked about this before on the show also, but fire sales are basically, well, in real life, a fire sale is when people sell things because they recently had a fire and oops, bad times, bad things. But in the video gaming world, I guess, or maybe it's just the sales world in general, a fire sale is, hey, I need to get rid of this stuff and I'm discounting it incredibly cheaply, someone please take it. So I was lucky enough to pick up a couple things from one guy who was just getting rid of some stuff. And I'm really happy that he was, because it gave me the chance to, I don't know, pick up some stuff. So from this one guy, I did get an N64 game, but we'll talk about that when I do the N64 games. But I also got Super Mario All-Stars. This is the Player's Choice Edition. Doesn't matter to me. When I first got my Super Nintendo, all the way back in 1996, I had Super Mario All-Stars plus Super Mario World. It came bundled with that Super Nintendo, and I still have it. It's up there on the shelf. But I never had the original Super Mario All-Stars that doesn't have Super Mario World on it. And even though I would prefer to have a traditional label rather than player's choice. I'm just happy to own a copy of this game at all because it helps fill in my collection and gives me another unique title. A unique title containing 4 non-unique titles. For those of you who don't know, this is a compilation cartridge for Super Nintendo containing Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 2, Super Mario Bros. 3, and the Japanese Super Mario Bros. 2 that we didn't get here originally, which was retitled for this game, Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. All with updated Super Nintendo graphics, updated Super Nintendo music, and updated Super Nintendo game feel. And I grew up playing these games. My very first time playing any of those 4 games was on that compilation cartridge plus Super Mario World, which was also the first place I ever played Super Mario World. So it's really nice to have this cartridge now because it's the original compilation before they made the new one adding Super Mario World. So now I have both of them, and I'm pretty happy about that. Alright, N64 stuff, because I got a lot of N64 stuff in just 1 month, because it's one of the smallest libraries that video game collectors collect for, myself included. It only has 200 and some odd games, which is very paltry in comparison to some of the larger libraries out there, like NES, SNES, even GameCube has a bigger library than the Nintendo 64, and it sold less units than the Nintendo 64. So I'm puzzled by that, I suppose. I guess that's around the time shovelware started really becoming popular, but the N64 didn't have a whole lot of shovelware. It just had a whole lot of sports titles and wrestling games and things of that nature. But it also had some licensed games, which is why I, along with that copy of Super Mario All-Stars, I picked up Star Wars Episode 1 Racer on Nintendo 64. And of course I'll mention that because N64 games don't have N labels, I did give this one an N label. Because I have a pack of N64 N labels, one for each North American released N64 game. There's 200 some odd labels in there, one each, one for every game. So all of these games have N labels put on them already. These don't come standard, so don't get confused. I added them. So, I did not grow up liking Star Wars. I didn't like Star Wars until I was in my teens already, maybe 14 or 15. It just didn't interest me growing up, and I know that's kind of sacrilegious, but I got into it later on, and I love Star Wars now. But growing up, I never would have played this, because I never would have given a shit, because I didn't care about Star Wars. By the time I liked Star Wars, I was already into GameCube, and this passed by. But I did know a lot of people who owned this game and swore by it, including an ex of mine who used to play it a lot. So I figured why not pick it up. I will have to have it eventually, and I do want to play it, even though I'm not big into racers unless they're like F-Zero or Mario Kart. That's really where I draw the line. But hey, I might as well give this one a shot. The only problem I have with this cartridge in particular, not the game, the cartridge, is that it has some label damage right here. But I got this really, really cheaply, so it's nice to have this just sitting on the shelf looking all cute, like this, and you can't see the label damage. I'll know it's there, but eventually I'll get an update to this cartridge and I'll have a nicer label. But for what it was worth, because of the fire sale, I don't mind the slight label damage there. It's really not the end of the world. At least it's not plastered with stickers and other bullshit that would leave like a ton of scraping and residue all over the label. Most of the time you get stickers on the back or on the sides or on the top, but every now and again you'll get some douchebag who wants to put stickers here. You know, where the fucking name of the game is. Where the cool artwork is. Don't ever do that. Please, if you're gonna put stickers on a game, I hate you already. But if you really need to, please don't put them here. In fact, don't put them anywhere on this side of the cartridge, okay? There's 5 other sides of the cartridge you could put this thing on. Don't put it on here. So I'm happy that there wasn't anything else. This cartridge just needed a light cleaning, and that was about it, but it booted up right away as soon as I put it into the N64, so it must have been taken care of in its life. Let's talk about a different game. In this pile of games, the next 4 that I'm going to talk about, they happen to also be the last 4 games I'm going to talk about, because again, paltry pickups this month, are 2 games that I used to own as a kid and lost for unfortunate reasons. I'll get into the story when we touch upon one of them closer to the end. But one of those games was Rampage World Tour. I used to own this. It was one of the first N64 games I did own. I remember picking it up from, I think, a KB Toys with my mom a long time ago. I don't actually remember what store it was. I just remember we got it out of a case. And it was a small store, so I think it was a KB Toys. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe Mom remembers, I don't know. I'll ask her about that eventually. But yeah, I used to own this game, and then some unfortunate things happened that I'll talk about a little bit later in this video, and I lost the game. And I finally got it back, how goddamn many years later. Actually, I think it's about 10 years later since I lost it. So, yeah, 10 years in the making. This game I actually loved. I used to play this a lot with friends, and I never beat it because it's very long, and the game doesn't save. You have to beat it in one sitting, so I never had the time. Even as a kid, I never had the time to just be able to sit down and beat this game in one sitting. It's really long. Like, I think it's more than 2 hours of gameplay for an N64 game. And it's very frustrating. That 2 hours of gameplay can easily turn into 4 or 5 if you suck at the game, like I did when I was a kid. Because it's kind of an arcade-style game where it's very hard to win. You can play as many times as you want, and if you lose, you can start right from where you left off. There's no, like, game overs, I guess. But I mean, geez, this game was difficult. And so, because of that, I never beat it when I was a kid. It was always too hard. But yeah. Finally got that back, Rampage World Tour. Happy. That's to say the least. So this is a game that I never owned growing up, but I used to rent it a ton from Blockbuster, and I played it a lot with friends of mine, and one of my sister's exes used to play it with me too at his place when I would visit, and hang out with the two of them, because I was a weird brother like that. But it's Mario Golf! I actually used to own Mario Golf on Game Boy Color. I don't remember what happened to my copy of it, but I don't have it anymore. I'll get it back eventually, though, because it's radically different from the N64 copy. But I did used to rent this bad boy from Blockbuster, so of course I'm happy that now I finally own it and can play it whenever the hell I please. For those of you who don't know, Mario Golf is golf with Mario and Mario characters. And apparently there's a plot, and it's actually pretty damn good. It's one of the better golf games on the N64. Because the other ones take themselves way too seriously. Because again, the N64 is fraught with weird and kind of bad sports titles. This is a good sports title, but probably only because it has the charm of being a Nintendo title with Mario in it. Oh well, but happy to own this too. There's not much else I can say about it. It's pretty ubiquitous. Almost everybody knows about Mario Golf, even people who haven't played video games. So here it is. Alright, the next game I'm about to show is, again, that other game that I had growing up and lost, and finally got back. And up until recently, I've had to answer questions about, Matt, why don't you own this game? I can't believe you don't have this game. You collect video games. How could you not own this game? Well, there's a twofold reason. First of all, again, that really shitty thing happened where I lost it. And secondly, it's expensive, but I finally got it. It's Mario Kart 64. I owned this game growing up. It was one of the first N64 games I ever had. I think right after Mario 64, my parents bought me Mario Kart 64, and my sister and I used to play the shit out of it. I grew up on this game, but for the last 10 years, I haven't owned it, despite being a collector. The first reason is, of course, because of the price of the cartridge. It's very expensive nowadays. It goes for as high as sometimes $60 to $70 in the wrong places. And I would say about as high as $40 to $50 in the right places. But I was able to snag this one for only $30 thanks to someone having a fire sale on Long Island Retro Gaming. So, thank you very much. You know who you are. But yeah, let's talk about that unfortunate thing. So basically, in high school, around 2009, maybe 2008, so maybe it's been a little more than 10 years, I had a friend who will remain nameless, we're not really friends anymore, who wanted to start up an N64 collection because he wanted to go back to his roots, or something like that. The Wii was relatively new, so the N64 was pretty much considered retro by this point already, especially because hello cartridge game in the era of discs. But I offered to let him borrow a couple of games of mine while he was buying them on his own, because at the time Mario Kart 64 was not expensive. So I lent him a bunch of games that I used to own. A lot of them I've gotten back. This collection of N64 games right here, I got almost every single game back. But I guess you can see where this is going. I lent him Rampage World Tour and Mario Kart 64, along with a slew of other games. And not only did I not get them back, he threatened me with blackmail if I didn't let him keep them. And there was nothing really against me. It wasn't really blackmail in the sense that he would leak publicly unknown information about me. I was a kid and I didn't have any secrets really, but I was a very lonely child and very insecure. And his method of keeping me at bay was to threaten to turn all of my other friends in our friend group against me. And that was my first real group of friends. So I was really sad. And, I would have been really sad if that had happened. So I, like an idiot, relented and let him keep all those games. I'm stupid for doing so. But I got all of them back, not because I bought them, but because I, over time, would continue to pretend to be his friend, go over to his house, and one by one, steal them back. Which went unnoticed for a very long time because he was always a very unkempt and uncleanly person. So any games that he didn't lose on his own, I took, and he just always thought he was losing them because he was so unclean. And the only game that I was unable to get back, or the only two games, I should say, that I was unable to get back, were Mario Kart 64 and Rampage World Tour. I finally got the two of them back, just this past month. The rest of them, I all got back. I got them all back over that time where I was re-stealing them, like a criminal. But was I really stealing? I did give him permission to take them, but only under guise of extortion. So who's the bad person here? Leave your interesting or creative responses in the comments section below. It's mine again. And if he still has my old copy of Super Mario or Mario Kart 64 and is still playing it, whatever. At this point, it's water under the bridge. That was still a dick move, though. Don't ever do that to anybody else again. But you are absolved of your sin, because I have those two games back. Let's look at them together. That's a nice family shot, don't you think? Happiness. Happiness. Oh yeah. And finally, the last N64 game, and all over the last game that I got in February, the last thing in general. I went down to the video game trading post, which I have touted a lot in this series because they have great deals and they give great trading credit, because I had a lot of doubles that I wanted to get rid of this month. I just came into a lot of doubles because of a friend of mine who was just getting rid of some stuff, and yeah, decided to go down to the trading post and trade them all in, and I got quite a pretty penny for them. So much so that I was able to basically turn them around without any additional money into a copy of Harvest Moon 64, which is, again, a pretty expensive game for the system, so I was really happy to walk away with this for basically nothing at all. Because someone just handed me some games and said, do something with these, and I owned them all. So I traded them in. And basically that person gave me Harvest Moon 64. Always happy when this happens. I've done it before. My Power Glove, I used to own two of them because I found them both at a yard sale, and I traded one in and ended up getting a Game & Watch. Basically just turning one thing into another for really, really cheap because of a yard sale find, and I'll do that pretty frequently. I haven't done it a lot recently, but it happens, and this is one of those examples. Harvest Moon 64 is a farming simulation game. It's very popular, and that's why it's so expensive. This game isn't actually all too rare. But the Harvest Moon series has continued on even to this day, although it has changed names, and now it's called Story of Seasons. So if you're confused about why there haven't been any Harvest Moon games recently, there have. They have a different name now. So all of you Harvest Moon fans out there hearing that for the very first time, now you can go and pick up all the Story of Seasons games that have come out since the name change. There hasn't been a lull. There are still games coming out. You're welcome. But yeah, one of the more expensive games on the N64. Finally happy to own it. Knock it out of the way. It's always great when you get an expensive game for the system because you never have to buy it again, unless of course some jerk decides to steal them from you under guise of extortion. Whew! Well, that's it. Let's, sometimes when I'm really happy with the game on this show, I will talk about it and then I'll give it a smooch. This one deserves more than a smooch. It deserves a nuzzle and a smooch and some loving. But we'll talk about that another time. Thank you so much for sticking with me. This was a shorter episode because, of course, I got fewer things in February, but now it's March, and you know what that means. I don't know if you could hear that, but a train just blasted its horn outside. So I guess it means that, trains. Which is, I don't know what that really means, to be honest, but you know what? It means we're going to buy games, and we're going to own games, and we're going to have games, and we're going to be happy about it. Take it easy, thanks again for watching, and have yourself a fantastic day.